Welcome. If you're here, you probably want to get up to speed quickly on the big changes shaping our world.
And do it thoroughly, right?
Exactly. So today, we're jumping into a really significant topic, the future of work, especially with artificial intelligence and automation accelerating things.
And alongside that, the whole idea of universal basic income, or UBI,
Mm-hmm.
as a potential response, it's a huge conversation.
It really is. This isn't just sci-fi anymore, is it? AI and automation are actually starting to impact jobs, economies, our social safety nets.
Definitely. The implications are profound, touching how we earn a living, how economies function, everything.
So to get a solid grasp, we've gathered insights from quite a few places. We've got research from McKinsey and Company, academic papers from journals like Frontiers and the EPI Center,
Right.
articles from The Week, Forbes, reports from places like the Social and Economic Review.
We even dipped into some Reddit discussions to see what people are saying on the ground, so to speak. It's a real mix of perspectives.
It is. And you see that variety, don't you? Some sources focus heavily on maybe the job displacement side.
While others are exploring potential solutions, and UBI keeps coming up again and again.
Right. So our mission here is to pull out the core ideas for you. We want to synthesize the key debates, the potential challenges, the proposed solutions around AI, automation, UBI.
Without you getting lost in all the jargon or complexity, we want to give you that clear overview.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, what's the picture look like for jobs? How is AI and automation actually impacting work?
Well, the big headline is definitely the potential for job displacement. That's central. McKinsey and Company, for instance, they've modeled different scenarios.
Scenarios,
Yeah.
okay. What do they suggest?
Their sort of middle estimate, around 15% of the global workforce potentially displaced by automation by 2030.
15%, that sounds like a lot. How many people is that?
It's about 400 million people globally, a significant number for sure.
And you said middle estimate. Does it go higher?
It does. In their faster adoption scenario, if tech rolls out really quickly, that figure could jump to 30%.
30%. That's 800 million workers. That's staggering.
It is. But it's crucial to mention their slower scenario, too.
Yeah, okay.
In that case, the impact is much smaller, maybe around 10 million displacements.
Yeah.
So the speed of adoption is really key here.
Right. That makes a huge difference. It underscores just how much uncertainty there is.
Absolutely.
So, okay, we have these potential numbers. Which kinds of jobs or sectors are most in the firing line?
Generally, roles involving routine, repetitive tasks are seen as most vulnerable. This isn't new, but AI accelerates it. The World Journal of Advanced Research and Reviews points this out.
Okay, routine tasks. Any specific industries?
McKinsey mentions asset management as one example.
Mm-hmm.
We're also seeing discussions like in data rails about healthcare roles potentially shifting.
Shifting how?
Right.
Like doctors being replaced.
Not necessarily replace wholesale, but maybe tasks changing. Think radiologists or pathologists, their roles might evolve to focus more on complex analysis or overseeing AI tools, needing different skills.
Interesting. So augmentation rather than pure replacement in some cases.
Potentially, yes. And even industries like construction are part of this discussion. You see that popping up on places like Reddit, too.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right? The narrative usually includes new jobs being created, too.
That's the other side of the coin, absolutely. Sources like the World Journal of Advanced Research and Reviews and Brookings highlight this. New opportunities will emerge.
What kind of opportunities? The tech jobs, mostly.
Tech jobs, yes. Think data scientists, machine learning engineers, AI specialists. Data Rails mentions those specifically. But also jobs requiring skills that are harder to automate.
Like what?
Things like creativity, critical thinking, and importantly, what they call social intelligence.
Social intelligence. Explain that a bit more.
It's about collaboration, empathy, complex communication, negotiation, basically, understanding and interacting effectively with other humans. Machines, well, they're still not great at that.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's the crucial question, the one everyone asks. Will these new jobs actually make up for the ones lost? Is automation a net job creator or destroyer?
That is the major point of debate. There's real concern reflected in places like Reddit that automation might eliminate more jobs than it creates this time around.
Leading to a potential need for, well, something different.
Exactly, something beyond just finding a new traditional job for everyone displaced.
Yet on the flip side, proponents of automation talk about productivity boosts, economic growth.
Right, and that's a Kim argument. McKinsey, for example, emphasizes that embracing automation is likely critical for boosting productivity, which fuels economic growth.
So the economy could get bigger overall.
Potentially, yes. The World Journal of Advanced Research and Reviews even cites McKinsey suggesting AI could significantly increase global GDP. A larger economic pie is possible.
A larger pie. But the question then becomes how it's sliced, right? I've seen concerns that automation might actually make inequality worse.
That's a very serious concern, and Brookings research definitely backs it up. They argue digital automation since the 80s has already contributed to growing labor market inequality.
How so?
We've seen certain middle-skill jobs, like in production or clerical work, either vanish or wages stagnate. Meanwhile, many of the new high-paying jobs often require advanced education, creating this widening gap.
Okay, so we have this complex picture. Potential job losses, maybe not enough new jobs to compensate, and a risk of greater inequality. This seems like the perfect entry point for UBI.
Exactly. Universal basic income.
Let's define that clearly for everyone listening. What is UBI, fundamentally?
At its core, based on definitions like the one from the EPI Center, UBI is a regular cash payment given to every individual in a community.
Every individual, regardless of whether they work or how much they earn.
Correct. No strings attached, no work requirement, it's unconditional. That's what makes it different from most current welfare programs.
And why is it gaining traction now, specifically in relation to AI and automation?
It's largely driven by those fears of widespread job displacement we just talked about. McKinsey, The Week, MIT Media Lab, they all link the rise of automation concerns to the increased interest in UBI as a possible safety net.
A way to support people if traditional jobs become scarce.
Precisely. Some technologists even argue it might be necessary to maintain social cohesion if automation takes over a large chunk of labor.
It's fascinating, though, because the idea itself isn't brand new, is it?
Not at all. Thinkers like Bertrand Russell, economists like Robert Theobald, even Milton Friedman with his negative income tax idea.
Yeah.
They were discussing similar concepts way back.
Decades ago, yeah, before AI was really on the mainstream radar like this.
Absolutely. So it's an old idea getting a fresh look because of these new technological pressures.
So have we actually tried this out anywhere? Are there real-world UBI experiments we can learn from?
Yes, there have been several pilots which give us some valuable, albeit sometimes mixed, data points.
Like where?
Finland ran a well-known experiment between 2017 and 2018. They gave a basic income to a group of unemployed people.
And what happened? Did they stop looking for work?
The analysis from the European Commission found it didn't really have a significant impact on employment levels, positively or negatively.
Huh. So no big effect on work. Anything else?
Yes. Participants reported feeling better, higher life satisfaction, better well-being, and less bureaucratic hassle compared to the traditional system.
That well-being aspect seems important. What about the U.S.? Any experiments there?
There were negative income tax experiments back in the 60s and 70s. The results were complex, and some debate the methods used as one source, exploring universal basic income notes.
Okay, older ones. Anything more recent?
Yeah, there was the Open Research Project. They gave $1,000 a month to about 1,000 low-income people for 3 years.
And the findings, I saw some discussion on Reddit about this.
Right. The analysis suggested maybe a slight dip in average work hours, like 1 or 2 hours a week.
Just 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah, not a massive drop-off. And again, like Finland, some indications of improved well-being were noted. No major negative impact overall seemed apparent from that study.
Are there other places trying this?
Definitely. There's an ongoing experiment in Barcelona's Besós district, testing different income levels for households already getting social support.
Okay.
And the sources also mention pilots, either historical or proposed, in places like Manitoba, in Canada, Namibia, India, even Oakland, California.
So quite a few attempts, different contexts, different results. Sometimes it's not a simple picture.
Not at all. Each experiment has its own design, its own local conditions. It gives us clues, but not necessarily definitive answers for everywhere.
Let's shift to the arguments for UBI. We touched on well-being, but what are the main potential benefits proponents highlight?
Well, the most fundamental one is providing that basic financial floor, reducing poverty. McKinsey, The Week, the Autonomy Institute all stress this.
Reducing poverty seems like a primary goal.
Absolutely. The Autonomy Institute even ran models suggesting UBI could significantly cut poverty rates for children, working-age adults, and pensioners.
That's a powerful potential outcome. What else?
There's an argument, like the one from MIT Media Lab, that it could actually empower workers.
Empower them how?
By giving them more bargaining power. If your basic needs are covered, you might be less desperate to take the first low-paying job offered. You might hold out for better work, or use the security to get more training or education.
Interesting point. Freedom to choose better options.
Exactly. And another point mentioned by McKinsey and seen in the Finnish experiment is potentially simplifying the welfare state.
How so?
UBI could replace a complex web of different benefits programs, potentially cutting down on bureaucracy and administrative overhead. Less red tape.
Less red tape is usually popular. We also talked about well-being.
Right. Improved subjective well-being and life satisfaction come up repeatedly. EPI Center, the Finnish results, Reddit discussions.
And does it free people up for other things?
That's another potential benefit discussed in Exploring Universal Basic Income, freeing up time for valuable unpaid work, like caring for family or volunteering in the community.
Activities that society values but doesn't always pay for?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Week notes that simply covering basics like rent and groceries might give some people the stability needed to, say, start a small business.
Okay, so there's a compelling case for the potential upsides, but UBI isn't without its critics and challenges, right? What are the big concerns?
Oh, absolutely. The challenges are significant. Probably the biggest hurdle is the cost.
Yeah, giving everyone money sounds expensive.
Extremely expensive, potentially. Exploring Universal Basic Income and the World Social and Economic Review really dig into this. Implementing a full UBI would likely require major tax hikes or massive shifts in government spending.
Where would the money come from? Taxing the rich.
That's often proposed, but Exploring Universal Basic Income points out the political challenges there could be immense. It's not a simple fix.
Okay, cost is huge. What about the work incentive question? That always comes up.
It's probably the most common concern voiced that UBI would make people not want to work. You see this in sources like PMC and debated heavily on Reddit.
But the experiments didn't show a huge drop-off in work.
The evidence is mixed. But yes, many experiments showed quite limited effects on overall labor supply, as we discussed. Exploring Universal Basic Income suggests it's likely more nuanced than just people will stop working.
Okay, nuanced. Another economic worry is inflation, right?
Yes, that's a valid concern raised online. If everyone suddenly has more money to spend, but the amount of goods and services doesn't increase to match.
Prices could just go up, eating away the benefit.
That's the fear. If demand outstrips supply, you could see inflation.
Beyond the pure economics, what about just doing it? The practicalities?
Implementation is a massive challenge. Exploring Universal Basic Income highlights this. You need robust systems to identify everyone, get payments out reliably and efficiently.
Especially harder in some countries.
Yes, particularly in low or middle-income countries, lagging extensive digital infrastructure, for example. And then there's public and political buy-in.
Getting people to agree this is a good idea.
Exactly. Public opinion is often divided. People might think they would use UBI wisely, but worry about how others might use it. Building the political coalition needed to pass something like UBI is a huge task.
And one last really crucial challenge. How much is the basic income? Setting that level seems tricky.
Incredibly tricky. Exploring Universal Basic Income calls this out too. It needs to be enough to actually reduce poverty and provide security.
But not so high that it creates major work disincentives or becomes completely unaffordable.
Precisely. Finding that sweet spot, that Goldilocks level, is a central design challenge.
Okay, so UBI has potential benefits, but also serious hurdles. It feels like it can't be the only answer being considered for the future of work. What else is on the table?
You're right. It's definitely not the only idea. Many sources, particularly McKinsey, emphasize a range of complementary or alternative strategies. Well, fundamentally, fostering strong economic and productivity growth overall. That's seen as the bedrock for job creation in the first place.
Makes sense. A growing economy helps.
And supporting business dynamism, making it easier for entrepreneurs to start and grow businesses, especially small businesses.
Okay, focus on growth and new businesses. What about preparing the actual workforce?
That's critical. Evolving education is key, emphasizing not just STEM skills, which are important.
Science, technology, engineering, math.
Right. But also creativity, critical thinking, systems thinking, and crucially, adaptability and lifelong learning. People will need to keep learning throughout their careers.
So continuous learning, investing in people.
Yes, investing in human capital. That means more effective worker training programs and maybe incentives for companies to invest more in training their own workforce.
What about matching people to the jobs that do exist?
Improving how the labor market works is another piece. Better information on job openings, maybe more standardized ways to recognize skills and credentials, using digital platforms more effectively to connect people.
Streamlining the job search process.
Essentially, yes. And also rethinking the work itself. how jobs are designed, how workspaces are set up to help humans and machines collaborate effectively and safely.
Adapting the workplace itself.
And importantly, strengthening the support systems for workers who are displaced, rethinking unemployment benefits, transition assistance, retraining support for those affected by automation.
So targeted help for those who lose out.
Exactly. Alongside broader strategies, another idea is investing in things that inherently require human labor and create demand.
Like what?
Think large-scale infrastructure projects or efforts related to climate change adaptation and mitigation. These can create many jobs in areas less prone to immediate automation.
And we need to make sure we're using AI itself responsibly, right?
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
McKinsey stresses this, addressing the concerns around data security, privacy, algorithmic bias. We need to embrace the tech, but safely and ethically.
I also saw mention of looking beyond traditional jobs entirely.
That's an interesting angle from Frontiers. They talk about considering subsistence activities.
Like growing your own food or fixing things yourself.
Kind of, yeah. Producing more for personal use, and also very small-scale proprietorships, tiny businesses, as potential ways people might supplement income or meet needs if traditional employment changes drastically.
Broadening our view of economic activity.
And finally, underlining all this is the constant need for reskilling and upskilling, as mentioned in Emerald and other sources, but also doing it humanely.
Humanely.
Yes, the Emerald article emphasizes a human-centered approach, considering workers' mental health and psychological safety during these potentially disruptive transitions. It's not just about skills. It's about supporting people through change.
Wow. Okay, this has covered a lot of ground, so let's try to pull the threads together. It seems clear AI and automation offer huge potential upsides, productivity, maybe growth.
For sure. But they also pose really significant challenges. Job displacement is real, and the risk of increasing inequality is serious.
And UBI emerges as a major proposed solution to buffer those shocks, offering a safety net, maybe other benefits like well-being or worker power.
But it comes with its own massive questions. Cost, work incentives, inflation worries, how to actually implement it fairly and effectively. It's not a silver bullet.
And as we've heard from all these different sources, McKinsey, Brookings, MIT, Reddit, academic journals, there are many viewpoints, lots of debate. It's complex.
It really is. Which brings us back to you, listening right now. As you've heard all this, what aspects really resonated? What parts of the future of work or the UBI debate stood out most?
Yeah, what further questions pop into your head about these potential shifts? And maybe start thinking, how can we as individuals or policymakers best prepare for what might be coming?
We really hope this deep dive has given you a solid foundation. We encourage you to dig deeper if you're interested. Look up the sources we mentioned, find other research. Forming your own informed perspective is so important here.
Absolutely, because one thing seems certain. As technology keeps evolving at this pace, the conversation about work, income, and building a just, prosperous society for everyone,
That conversation is only going to get more critical.